Memes are something we see all the time, every day, often not even thinking about how much of them we really see in the moment. Memes make up about 90% of everything we see on social media, and it's a trend that's only grown with the internet since the late 2000s and early 2010s. The definition of a meme is an image, video, or piece of text that is copied and spread rapidly by people on the internet. Some memes make us laugh, some make us cringe, others make us wonder how or why anyone would be sharing them around in the first place. There are very few memes that have any staying power in this era of decreased attention span, but back in the late 2000s, internet culture was being shaped by foundational memes that still have an impact today. Among these is one that stands out for its lasting influence beyond cringe or a simple laugh. In these early days, a Photoshop contest would birth a creation that would impact internet culture, video games, and have serious real-world consequences. It's June 8th, 2009, and there's a wide variety of discussions taking place on the Something Awful forums. But the thread we're interested in was a Photoshop contest going on aimed at creating paranormal images. Among all these entries, one user known as Victor Surge submitted 2 black and white images that would impact the world in ways he could have never imagined. These pictures depicted groups of children, seemingly oblivious to a tall, thin figure looming in the background, a faceless being in a black suit with unnaturally long limbs. Previous entries in the forum consisted solely of pictures, but Victor Surge's post included a cryptic text, supposedly from witnesses, that hinted at abductions and unexplained disappearances. This is where one of the most legendary characters in the history of the internet was born. This was the beginning of the Slender Man. User Victor Surge, real name Eric Knudsen, took inspiration for Slender Man from a wide variety of other media, citing movies like Phantasm and TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Knudsen talked about his intention with the characters, saying that the goal was to formulate something whose motivations can barely be comprehended. I'd say he largely succeeded, thanks in part to the absence of a face or any emotions from Slender Man. But if we're talking about inspiration, it's worth bringing up one of the closest visual inspirations for Slender Man, The Question from DC Comics. It's hard to ignore the similarities between Slendy and The Question, especially when you consider that Knudsen's username, Victor Surge, is nearly identical to The Question's secret identity, Victor Sage. I vividly remember being off-put by The Question when the old Justice League animated series would air on Cartoon Network, and it led to a strange familiarity whenever I finally came across Slender Man. Shortly after the initial post, the thread slowly stopped being a paranormal Photoshop contest and turned into the first ever Slender Man discussion. People were blown away at the initial pictures and decided to add to the yarn that Knudsen had already began spinning, posting their own takes on Slender Man and creating a sort of ARG out of the whole thing. It took just under 2 weeks from the original post on the SA forums to the creation of a YouTube found footage series based on the existing Slender Man lore. Marble Hornets started on June 20th, 2009, and as of October 2024, there are 92 videos on the main channel with 38 on a side channel called To The Ark. The videos are framed as a series of entries uploaded by Jay Merrick, who discovers a collection of tapes left behind by his friend Alex. Alex is working on a student film called Marble Hornets, but abandoned it under mysterious circumstances. After Jay starts to review the tapes, he slowly discovers more about what happened to Alex. It's all centered around the increasing presence of the Operator, a stand-in for Slender Man. The story unfolds in a non-linear and fragmented way, often leaving viewers to piece together the events themselves. The series uses minimal special effects, relying heavily on atmosphere, tension, and the eerie feeling of being watched. It was a hit online, and the Marble Hornets channel went on to gain 680,000 subscribers with 120 million views. Marble Hornets played an important role in bringing Slender Man into internet culture. There was some lore surrounding Slender Man on the Something Awful forums, 4chan, and Reddit, but Marble Hornets helped push Slender Man to new highs. This was happening alongside the rise of a certain kind of post that was growing in popularity at the time, known as creepypasta. The term creepypasta being derived from copypasta, which means text that's copied and pasted repeatedly. Creepypasta.com was launched in 2008, which helped in having one place to go for those kinds of stories, especially during the Marble Hornet series and the expansion of the Slender Man mythos. Slender Man quickly rose through the ranks of creepypasta to become one of the most popular among the likes of Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, and The Rake. All this to say, Victor Surge had effectively lost ownership of the character. The Slender Man character was now the community's to do what it pleased. Whether that was being spread on more forums, being made to look hot on art websites, or being ripped off on Doctor Who, even getting a fan-made theme song. By 2012, Slender Man was becoming more and more relevant, not just in spooky forums visited by a few people, but in popular internet culture. This was when a 35-year-old man from New Mexico had first learned about him. Mark Hadley tried to design board games and card games, but his projects got little to no attention. It was around this time that he became a fan of Marble Hornets and decided to make a game based on the series as part of his efforts to learn the Unity game engine. He started working on it in May of 2012 and eventually released a free beta for the game on June 26 for Windows and macOS, simply titled Slender. Hadley took a lot of inspiration from Amnesia: The Dark Descent and how it built suspense through atmosphere rather than typical jump scares. Although he felt like the problem with Amnesia was how scripted it was. The vast majority of the most memorable or most terrifying encounters in Amnesia were tightly scripted moments that were usually triggered by specific player action or entering new areas. So with Slender, Hadley decided to add a degree of randomness to Slender Man's appearances. One of my favorite parts about the development of the game is that mostly everything was a free asset and the Slender Man model itself was really low quality. So how did he get around this? Well, he made the visibility really poor with only a flashlight to guide you, and he made players have to look away from Slendy to survive. Most people were too scared and too immersed to notice anyway, thanks in part to the music. The music of Slender, also made by Hadley, was made to be repetitive and droning, slowly revealing each new layer of instruments to add that pressure and terror. Slender was intensely popular immediately. The website where you were supposed to be able to download the game was down for days, as so many people were trying to get in to try to play. PewDiePie's first Slender video got 1 million views in just 4 days, and that kind of feat was a much bigger deal at the time. That's when every other Let's Play YouTuber started uploading their Slender videos, and the popularity of the game, and therefore the characters, skyrocketed. I was pretty much oblivious to all this going down because my online time was limited to when I was able to use the family desktop computer. I first heard about Slender Man in the middle of the summer of 2012 when I was at my friend Ryan's house. We were just hanging out and he said, "Do you know Slender Man?" Just like that, he put emphasis on the man part. It was pretty strange, but I said I had no clue what he was talking about and he pulled out his MacBook. He turned off the light in his room and booted up Slender: The 8 Pages. I watched him play and to be honest, he sucked, but I was just as immersed as he was. We were both collectively freaking out whenever the loud piano cue would hit and the screen would start getting all staticky. The rest of the hangout just consisted of Ryan showing me Slender creepypastas online and trying to get me to believe that he was real. By the time a 10-year-old kid with barely any internet access gets a hold of something, it's safe to say it's gone mainstream. The 8 Pages was an insanely successful introduction to the character of Slender Man to a whole lot of people that don't browse the Something Awful forums or haven't watched the Marble Hornets series. The insane audience it had on YouTube showcased Slender Man to other platforms and he became a staple meme of the early 2010s. By 2013, it wasn't possible for you to be online and not know who Slender Man was. It didn't matter if you were watching a Minecraft mod showcase, scrolling through iFunny, or watching your favorite Team Caliber member not upload a Call of Duty video for some reason. Slender Man was everywhere. Eric Knudsen, who created the character on the Something Awful forums, had the legal rights to Slendy and was selective in what he chose to give his blessing to. For instance, he allowed Blue Isle Studios and Parsec Productions to make Slender: The Arrival, a fully realized version of the 8 Pages with way better graphics and a proper story. But the folklorish character wasn't really something he could put a lid on completely. Even if you copyright the Happy Birthday song, you're not gonna stop the family down the street from singing it in the privacy of their own home. The same thing was true with Slender Man. From his first day of existence in the Something Awful forums, people were creating their own lore surrounding the character. That was done more when he made his way to creepypasta websites, and even more after the 8 Pages. Slender Man had found his place in popular internet culture and soon began to infiltrate mainstream media. In October of 2013, Conan O'Brien aired a segment as part of his Clueless Gamer series where he played the 8 Pages. If you were to tell Eric Knudsen in 2009 that the best late night talk show host in the US, and yes, I said the best, would be playing a video game about the character he quickly put together for a Photoshop contest on the Something Awful forums, he'd probably think you're insane. Just a few short months later, Supernatural aired an episode titled The Thin Man. The episode revolved around a mysterious, faceless figure captured in photographs and videos right before gruesome events happened, some of them appearing on forums. It featured a figure that was totally not Slender Man. Spoilers for Supernatural Season 9, Episode 15, but the boys ultimately figure out that all the horrible events that took place were done by people who were exploiting the legend of the Thin Man, who saw the legend of the Thin Man and twisted it to carry out their own horrific acts. Just 2 months after this episode, with the Winchester brothers grappling with the consequences of a legend taken too far, the world was about to witness a tragic example of a real internet-born myth spilling into reality with devastating effects. It's Friday night in Waukesha, Wisconsin. A 12-year-old girl named Peyton Lightner is getting ready to celebrate her friend Morgan Geyser's birthday. Peyton was drawn to Morgan in the 4th grade because, in her words, she saw that Morgan was a loner like her. Also at the party is fellow 12-year-old Anissa Wire, who was new to the school they all went to and who had grown very close to Morgan. According to Morgan's mom, it was a normal sleepover. The girls ran up and down the stairs and giggled all night. But the following morning, Morgan and Anissa suggested Peyton that they all go to the park. The girls all walk to a local park where Morgan and Anissa talk amongst themselves in the bathroom while Peyton waits outside. After they come out, Morgan suggests that the trio play hide and seek in the woods. Peyton is reluctant but is dragged into the woods for the game anyway. Morgan volunteered to count first and started while Peyton and Anissa ran into the woods. After some time, Anissa tells Peyton that she has a great idea for a hiding spot. She told Peyton to lay down on the floor of the woods and began to cover her with sticks and leaves. Peyton believes the plan is to make Morgan think that she's just a pile of foliage in the woods. Anissa goes a bit overboard and eventually Peyton can't see anything. All she can do is listen. She hears Anissa run away, presumably to find a hiding spot. Just a short time later, Morgan stops counting. Then Peyton hears footsteps, leaves and twigs breaking. The next thing Peyton knows, someone jumps on top of her and starts to hold her down. Peyton can barely tell what's happening, just managing to see Anissa holding her down and, out of the corner of her eye, Morgan grabbing her backpack. Morgan gets on top of Peyton to weigh her down as well and hands Anissa the knife. Anissa hands it back to Morgan, and the two go back and forth for a few seconds before Morgan starts to stab Peyton 19 times with a knife that has a 5-inch blade. According to Anissa, Peyton was screaming in pain and saying things like, "I hate you guys, I'll never forgive you, I trusted you." This probably freaked the girls out a little bit because they told Peyton that they would go to get help and both ran out of the woods. They didn't run to get help for Peyton, but instead to find something that didn't exist. The whole reason this stabbing occurred was because Morgan had developed an unhealthy obsession with Slender Man. After they ran out of the woods, Morgan and Anissa were attempting to walk to a fictional mansion to be with Slender Man, hoping he'd be impressed with them. Peyton was still on the ground in the woods. Terrified and losing blood, she somehow got the strength to lift herself up and walk until she hit a patch of grass outside of the woods where she could lay down. It was there where a cyclist found her and called 911. Peyton had lost her vision and was somehow communicating with the cyclist what had happened. EMTs arrived shortly after and took Peyton to ProHealth Waukesha Memorial Hospital where they performed emergency life-saving surgery. She had one cut through her diaphragm which damaged her liver and her stomach, and another that almost penetrated her heart. It missed a major artery by less than a millimeter. 5 hours after the attack, Morgan and Anissa were apprehended by police just 5 miles from the attack location. It wasn't until their separate interrogations that the world would find out just what inspired this attack. Anissa was compliant and seemingly felt extreme guilt for what she did to her friend Peyton, but Morgan on the other hand displayed no empathy at all. Morgan was calm. She didn't freak out about the situation she was involved in and the implications that it would have going forward. Both maintained that the attack was necessary to appease Slender Man. Anissa would be sentenced to 25 years to life in a mental institution but was released under strict supervision in September 2021. Morgan was given 40 years to life in a mental institution and was denied release in April of 2024. Back in 2014 though, Peyton was hospitalized after the surgery for just 7 days before being released. She returned to school to start the 7th grade in September of that year. The Waukesha incident quickly became a media frenzy. News outlets started to sensationalize the story, dubbing it the Slender Man stabbing. Parents were being shown that they should be afraid of what the kid was doing online, and if you were a kid at the time, you probably had a conversation or two about this with your parents. I'm actually the same age as the 3 girls, but I never got sat down about it. I wasn't really chronically online yet. I just played Minecraft Xbox 360 with my friends all day, but I didn't have a phone or a computer. I do remember at school after the incident hit the mainstream media, my teacher had a long conversation with the class about what we were seeing online and how some of it could potentially be harmful because our minds were so impressionable. It was one of the first huge instances of media fear-mongering that was somewhat relevant to me. Not long after the incident, the Creepypasta Wiki temporarily suspended submissions involving Slender Man, and the creator, Eric Knudsen, expressed his sadness and condolences for those affected. The Slender Man character largely became synonymous with the Waukesha incident and slowly started to drift towards irrelevancy, not just from the mainstream public, but also online, as new creepy characters and stories were being born online and in video games in 2014. Just 2 years after the incident, HBO released a documentary titled Beware the Slender Man, which explored the Waukesha incident and the influence of Slender Man. It almost didn't seem like the character's future could get any worse, but then in 2018, Sony Pictures released the trailer for a new movie called Slender Man. One of the top comments on the official trailer sums it up well in saying, "Good job releasing the trailer during the height of its popularity." And his sarcasm was spot on. Statistically, according to Google Trends, Slender Man was the least popular he had been since before the 8 pages came out, and the movie didn't actually come out for another 10 months after that. At least everyone could maybe look forward to it being good? No. The movie was received horribly by both critics and audiences, and it wasn't even bad enough to talk about. It was something that came and went. It was just forgotten. I thought that maybe people might have been overreacting and decided to watch the film in preparation for this video, and I can assure you, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. The Slender Man movie was, in my opinion, the final nail in the coffin for one of the most intriguing and freakiest internet creations ever. The internet owes a lot to Slender Man and his creator Eric Knudsen. Indie horror games and really indie games in general largely follow the lead of Slender the 8 Pages. There are certain YouTubers that got their big break playing the original game and are now living totally comfortable and financially free because they decided to record themselves overreacting to the game in 2012. The name for one of the most important mobs in Minecraft was derived from Slendy as well. Slender Man showed us a capability of the internet that many people didn't know existed. That was the ability to spread a legend or a myth with the speed never before seen. But in the digital age, stories being told are shaped by the collective imagination of the internet, and fast. These stories can bring people together or inspire positive things in the world, but other stories have unintended consequences. It's unfair to criticize Victor Surge / Eric Knudsen for not having a hand in every new development of the Slender Man character. In the connected world we live in today, even with the legal right, it's impossible to have complete ownership and say over what your creation will eventually become. Slender Man is a prime example of that. A single idea from a forum post that rippled outward and affected industries and individuals, whether that be positive or negative. If researching for this video has taught me anything, it's that we should consider how we engage with the content we create and the content we consume. Because even the simplest creations can leave lasting impressions, shaping the world around it in ways we might never anticipate.